Don't you wanna die happy with a smile on your face? Wake up laughing, 'cause you're free of all the things that would hold you from your ocean blue. Life's a landscape, why don't you paint it your way?
Wait, you know when cats make that noise? Is that because they are...
They're in season.
That cat is always making noise.
I think it's horny, isn't it? I think it's a horny thing.
We have all female cats that live here, so it could be... But they're all fixed.
The
They're not giving it up.
The males come around.
I'm recording this.
Yeah, why not?
This is good chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you want to say?
Horny cats.
You gotta come into the microphone.
Horny cats.
It's the Bali life.
That's right.
You guys have got some
Wild.
horny cats.
Are you making fun of our accents?
That's the best I can do in American accent terms. I apologise on behalf of Great Britain for my bad impression of an Americanian.
Americanian.
Well, we'll have to apologize as well. Oh, wow. I really have to choke up on this thing.
You do. Sorry about that. What's your... can you do an English accent?
You can.
You did one a minute ago. I heard you.
I did do one a minute ago.
A minute ago.
A minute ago. Just a wee bit.
What is that? Is that supposed to be English?
A bit wobbly.
We watched
That's
one of my
nice.
favorite movies is the movie Snatch.
Yeah,
by Guy
great
Ritchie.
movie.
And I think I watched that with my friends like 10 times at least, and then we'd start having some drinks, and then we'd all just start speaking like.
What you were doing,
what
like
we
the
thought.
genuine Cockney accent, or were you doing the pikey accent?
A little bit.
Swap your dog for some caravans.
Yeah. We would just go back and forth.
In the mic.
Or do it for a caravan.
We were doing the whole thing properly.
2 dogs and 12 caravans.
That's right.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to. You can hear yourself. That's why you have the headphones on. So, so you're gonna have
That
to.
means you have to
That's
speak
why.
into
You're
the
gonna have to
microphone.
get into the mic.
Get into
You're
the
going to
mic.
get nice and close.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Sarquilla.
Sarkia.
Sarquilla. Good. I've been pronouncing it right all this time.
Can you say Sarquilla?
Sarquilla.
Oh yeah.
Talk to me about Sarquilla, only for a moment or two. But what's the nature of your name?
Yeah, it's from the Philippines, actually. My Filipino grandfather, who was born and raised in the Philippines and was taken on by the U.S. military after they chased the Japanese off the island. And they offered all the Filipino men automatic U.S. citizenship and a job in the military if you were between the age 18 and 21.
Nice.
He was 16, but lied.
Just
And we became
like
a
the
chef
paperwork.
on a Navy ship. Yeah.
Wow. And then became a U.S. citizen, and the rest is kind of history.
Yeah.
Nice. You got a story like that?
Do I have a story like that? No.
I didn't know you were from the Philippines.
I
think you're mistaking me with someone else. No.
No, I mean, do you have like a family story like that?
I don't actually. I was thinking this the other day. My family just don't tell enough stories. And I kind of want to get in touch with everyone and get their stories.
My dad knows a lot of these stories, but he used to tell them when I had little to no interest in hearing about my family history. I have to admit, I've got to the point now where I actually am marginally interested. My older brother, Pete, is a nut for it. He's done loads and research into our family history. Apparently, allegedly, we are related to a saint, Catholic saint, an archbishop of some description. We're also related to Robert Peel, the chap who invented the British police constabulary, the Peelers, which is ironic because between the three of us we were arrested a lot of times. And we're also related to the MacDonald clan. You've heard of the Scottish clans.
We're the MacLeod clan.
Ah.
So we probably fought in a battle somewhere.
Oh, no, imagine that. Imagine if your great-great-great-great-great-great-granddad killed the same.
Yeah.
It's made me a bit sad. Anyway, we're not here to be sad because we're on the How to Die Happy podcast. So
maybe if you're sad your whole life and you just you really invest in that, you have all this space to be happy right before you die.
I could buy into that because I believe in transformation in the present moment. So I could have a really sucky time right up to the end and then suddenly embrace the whole thing. But as you may or may not know, because I'm sure you've listened to all of our episodes, we talk about the 10 deathbed regrets a lot on this show, because that was in part what inspired me to do the show in the first place. And there are 10, hence it's called the top 10 deathbed regrets. And these regrets are really quite saddening. And there is things like, I wish I'd had the courage to live my dreams. I wish I'd had the courage to be my authentic self. I wish I'd not held grudges. I wish I'd spent more time with family instead of work. And then there is another deathbed regret, which is I wish I'd said I love you more. And I suppose to an extent that's why we're having this conversation with these two, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the main thread really for today's episode.
Love. I should explain for anyone watching and occasionally hearing the microphone issues with Chris. We spent probably a good hour setting this kit and caboodle up, only to discover
Saging everything.
saging everything due to my increasing irritation levels, only to discover that the fourth channel on the mixer doesn't work. So that's why these two are sharing a microphone in a really devoted way.
But it works, doesn't it?
It does work. So should we explain how we met these two? Is that how we kick this off?
Yeah, I think so.
How did we meet these two?
I don't know.
Well, I didn't really meet you, but I started going to your classes in Ubud
Yes.
some time ago. I think at the time you had long dark hair.
Probably. It's been many colors.
Yeah, and it was probably a good 4, maybe even 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been to Kirtans, but I'd never been to a Bhakti flow class. So I'd never combined the two together. So that was the first time I met you. And then when did you meet them?
I think I met Chris through Pablo, who's a friend of ours, who will probably get on the show at some point. He's a breath worker, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about. Everyone else knows Pablo. He's
the Pablo.
The Pablo. He's a beautiful bear of a man, a beautiful breathing bear. And that's how I first met you. But then, of course, we came to Kirtan.
We did, which now we have been coming as much as we can.
We have, but I wonder, how do we tell this story? Do we talk about Kirtan first, or do we talk about Bhakti first?
I'm up for anything. We can go down. We're free to go down tangents, right? When we're talking,
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
is
go
the
down
How
to
Did I
many
Have a
rabbit holes,
Podcast.
right? Like we've had some very good talks for many hours with the both of you, and we could go anywhere, right?
We can go where
So
we like.
we can start with either. We can start with an experience that has, with you guys, if you want, that you've had experience, or we can talk about bhakti or anything. Yeah.
Well, So I should just point out that our audience is all over the world, because it's a podcast.
Yeah.
And I think actually we've got a big American following, we've got a big British following, and hilariously, well, not so surprisingly, we've got a big following here. Mm-hmm. And I suspect they're all expats here. But we have a great deal of our audience doesn't do this stuff. They don't do yoga, they don't do kirtan, they probably never heard of it, or breathwork, or psychedelics, or all the other things we talk about on the show. So we're always keen to talk about these things with that lens.
The origin, right? The origin of
explaining
these
what it is. And so we've had 2 chats about yoga, haven't we, on this show?
Yeah, we have. We spoke to Kiara about Kundalini yoga, and what was the other one?
I feel like we had another yoga chat. Maybe we didn't.
Oh, we did kids yoga.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
Well, Jules and I were having a conversation about kind of the genesis of getting into yoga, and many years ago, actually, people were like, what is yoga? In fact, they would ask me, you do what? Yoga? Yogurt? Like they would make fun of it, especially when I was, I started yoga at 18, and that was many, many years ago. And and I had to really invite, encourage, let people know why yoga was important, because it just wasn't something that was in mainstream daily consciousness. Now, it's more like you just say yoga and people are like, well, I go to this studio and then this class and that class, and how much can I get in? A lot of times, not for everybody, but now at least people know that, oh, this yoga thing is something that's really beneficial for us. How do I manage to enter it? And people are still like interested to enter into yoga and aren't quite sure. And so that has come over the past 30 years, like it's massively exciting. And so the journey for a lot of people start with, many different ways, whether it's Kundalini or a asana yoga class, or maybe they stumble into a Kirtan. We had people the other night, right, that have never been to Kirtan before. And it always amazes me. I'm like, that's so exciting that you this was your first experience. And I love to see that with people.
Do you think the same understanding of yoga can be said the world over? That is to say, the West, or is it obviously over here? And most people who listen to this show know that I only started doing yoga when I got to Bali. Oh no, I actually started doing it in my first year of sobriety in London, doing vinyasa flow, and some of that really cool one where you just lie down and cuddle a pillow. What's that called again?
Yoga Nidra.
No, that's even better. No, the one where you have to do some
yoga.
stretching.
Yeah, restorative.
Yeah.
I love
Yin.
that.
Is yin the same thing?
Yin.
They're different. Yin and restorative.
I think it was yin. There was a cushion, and it was a bit painful.
I got to cuddle a cushion.
Yeah, that's
Hey.
the best kind of yoga. But do you think that people in the West have the same kind of understanding of A, the history and the story behind yoga, and B, its complex categories or different types?
The capacity of what, and the capacity and the differences of what people understand of yoga, I would have no idea how to answer that. But what I remember, again, living in and growing up in LA and San Diego area, the yoga is a bit more prescribed depending on where you go, and it's very asana based. I think that's changing. And definitely here in Bali, like the contrast of what's different is that I feel like when people come here, they're ready to inquire a bit more. They're a bit hungry to unravel and understand themselves more, so they're not looking just for a workout. And honestly, being drawn to yoga for whatever reason, a workout, the asana, the meditation, all of it it's however somebody gets into it, great. And then whatever way they're led, whatever path they find, that multidimensional path will be very unique to them. But yes, I think here in Bali, it's just a place, it's a vortex. It's where a lot of us are drawn, that we want to have a bit of a unique lifestyle or different lifestyle than what maybe we were born into or grew up with or found in, say, what we call the Western world or area. And so, I would say the students, because they're coming from all over the world internationally, you get somebody that doesn't speak your language, but they can come in and drop into your class, and you can communicate. That is exciting, that you can actually communicate with this very ancient sacred practice and make it very simple and not so complex. While it has massive complexities that, the more you learn, we know this, the more you learn, the more you know you don't know. And the more there is to learn and to grow into and to embody. And that's what Chris and I really have conversations about is what does it look to learn something and think you know it or remember it, and then how are you embodying it? And that's really interesting for us to even come on with you guys and talk about, is the embodiment of what yoga is, what relationship is, what happiness means, what it looks like to be, again, in relationship, healthy, and yet there's challenges and pain and chaos and all of it. And yoga is a practice to just help us go through the smiles, the tears, the happy and the sad, and have all of that going on at once and being able to navigate it. And but I know you said Western versus here in Bali, and Bali is just this magical vortex that the more you're here, like we were coming here and what'd you say? You're like, maybe we'll be here for a year. And I'm just like, I think we'll be here longer. 4 years in and many challenges, right? And navigating living here is both beautiful and intense. But Bali just sucks you in. So I think it has a lot to do with the yoga community and the holistic community and people looking to find, where you're on your scooter, you see a lot of people that are willing to stop and pause. And we saw a friend this morning riding his bicycle while we're driving by his scooter, and he's had a rough time. He's like, can you pull over? And we just like talked on the side of the road for a bit. We don't take that time a lot of times in the Western world. Yeah, and I'd like to say we would, but
and I think it's easier here in Bali to kind of bridge that gap, like the gap between your practice and the rest of your life. It's much easier to kind of bring the two together. Yeah. It's a big challenge, but especially I know in England it's a challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah, we had an interview last week with a chap called John Butler. He was in his 80s, and we had two callers, the Be My Guest callers who recorded questions. And both of them were yoga teachers, actually, but they both had questions about meditation relating to the fact that regardless of them being yoga teachers and meditators, they still struggle to find the time. They're both in London, and they both struggle to find the time to meditate. And I can buy that, though. I lived in London for 4 years, and it is distinctly more difficult to be and to live the path that you are learning in class and in books. Obviously there's an intellectual component to this as well, isn't there? I was thinking about what you were just saying there, and there's a thing about this particular community, I think. And actually it's what we missed, because we went to live in Ahmed and we totally missed this community. So we
missed you guys too.
Oh, we only went for 2 months and we were like, we've got to go back.
I expected you guys to come back pretty quick.
You all doubted us, huh?
You called it. It was, we say it was to do with the food as well, but in the main we missed the community. We
missed Kirtan.
We did miss Kirtan. Yeah. And there's a song called Namaste by Diva Pramal. Have you heard it? It goes, Namaste, Namaste. Anyway, it's a really happy song. And I found myself riding my bike through Bingin, just going, hi, to everyone. Like, you ride through Bingin and in 10 minutes you're waving at 10 people or something like that. Beep, beep, all the people in the cafes.
Yeah, we sing it in the car sometimes.
And I started singing, Namaste, hi, Namaste. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you and our audience at home.
Yeah, chanting on the scooter has been my, how I learned. It really just keeping me sane. So I know passing that along to many a yogi coming here to Bali, like, chant and stay, pay attention and be present and focus has, I think, helped a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. It's a great way to do it. There's in fact, this is the Guru Rinpoche mantra in Tibetan, which is Om Ahong Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hong. And I often just chant that when I'm riding. And if I'm on a long ride, I will chant that for 2-3 hours. Which has got to get me some brownie
Powerful.
Points. Yeah, somewhere. I'm opening some portals somewhere.
It's kind of the opposite, right, of the yoga thing. It's going to give me brownie points. But we all do that.
No, you make a good point, though. So I'm interested in having the conversation about yoga. As we're going to talk about Bhakti, because that's part and parcel of the conversation. But it's probably worth us talking about yoga in general, because I don't think we've done that. And I suspect a great deal of people, perhaps who are listening to this, when you say yoga, think of someone in, some active wear doing some poses, right? Doing some stretching. That's what yoga means. But I think it would be interesting for us to talk about the origin of the word union, the origin of the word yoga, and the concept of it. Who wants to start?
I'll pass that to our lovely guest. But I want to put in that point that you made a minute ago about wherever we start from, it's perfect, because so many people come to yoga thinking of just the asana, which is the movement, the shapes that we create.
I'm glad you defined asana. I was going to get someone to do that.
And I think often that's where you come in from. I think I came in from doing it through a DVD. Someone gave me a DVD, and it was, I can't remember the guy's name, and he was just teaching
memorable
simple
teacher.
asana classes. And when I've tried it now, I remember it being so difficult. And I found it when I was visiting my parents and I gave it a go. And I was like, oh my God, this used to be so hard for me. But that pulled me in. And from that moment, I wanted to know more and more and more and more. So whether you come at it from that asana point of view, just the physical practice, which is what most of us think of it as, you gradually just, it like unravels something and you just find that thread and you want to find out more, you want to learn more.
Yeah, there's certainly nothing wrong with people getting into it for fitness or for, to stretch. I mean, I don't really know what led me to it. Perhaps it was that. Perhaps it was combining that with going to the gym at the time, and it was a great way to stretch. But yeah, something in me felt a calling to understand more about it, and then I started to learn to meditate, and obviously it's all part and parcel of the same thing, isn't it? And learning how to breathe.
So yeah, sorry, we took that away. We were asking you a question and then we just carried on talking. But yeah.
I'd just like to point out that it was you.
It was me.
That's the common relationship thing, right?
But that's okay, because it's a podcast.
Exactly.
It's a ramble.
You guys can do whatever you want.
Totally.
Yeah, it's our podcast.
Yeah, this is our podcast.
Remember, there's no right or wrong.
Yeah, you ramble away, baby.
I'll do it.
But occasionally let our guests
Audrey.
speak.
Well, first of all, I'm no expert, and what I've learned over the years is that I've unlearned a lot. So coming into yoga and seeing it through one perspective, and I was fortunate to have many different perspectives in the lineage of Ashtanga yoga through Pattabhi Jois, which is where a lot of our modern postural yoga comes from. This is my Bhakti Yoga teacher says and calls the modern yoga this modern postural yoga, and I feel like I never called it that 30 years ago, but now I see that, and as I learn more, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. It's what one person does of yoga, someone else may think that's not yoga, and one teacher somewhere will say this is yoga and that's not yoga. So with all of that said, another teacher of mine, and I could name all of their names, but just not taking things as just my own, is that when we realize that we are walking paradoxes, literally that we are always in a, understanding that we are both one thing and another thing at one time. Like, can two things be true? And realizing that then puts everything in a headstand that you've learned over the years. And then, you start to, for me, the practice of postural yoga was something that brought my physical body into a sense of peace and calm. And then I noticed how it affected my mind. And it started to ease anxiety. I can't say it gets rid of all the anxiety and overwhelm, and my mind likes to do its thing, which is think a lot and ramble on inside of there. And so the practices started to bring body, mind, spirit, and heart together. And I thought, what is better than this in the world? And so I knew that at a young age, I had to just practice this so much. And the more I practiced it, and then when I realized I could be a teacher of it, and understand, then realize, yoga means union, yoking, connecting. It's that feeling I had of connecting my heart, my body, my mind, my spirit. And at one point in a lot of the Vedanta studies, which is another path of yoga, a very philosophical path, not so much postural path. It was... as much as I practiced it at a specific institute in Los Angeles, Vedanta Institute, there was no place for me in it. It was like only for men. Really, in all the study in the scriptures, it says men were yogis. There was no yoginis that I learned about just yet. So I had to seek out a lot of areas that I actually fit in. To find out what yoga was. Like, I still feel like, in a way, I'm attempting to understand what yoga is. And when somebody starts to tell me what they that it is for sure and it's the right way, and that still goes on, there's a part of me that it doesn't connect with my truth. It doesn't sound true. It doesn't feel true. And so, I tell people to kind of run away from that as soon as someone's trying to put a dogma into it, because again, what the teachers that I seek out in various lineages are paths of yoga, or from, lineage of teachers and gurus passing it down, this knowledge down, this wisdom down from, many years. That's what's led me to bhakti. But bhakti's always been there. It's Bhakti Yoga is the yoga of devotion. Karma is the yoga of our work. We put our love into our work. Jnana Yoga is the yoga of thought, knowledge, wisdom. We philosophy, thinking, and all of us have these different ways we connect with the world. So many paths, but understanding which path is right for you is what these teachers, yoga teachers from sages called rishis in India, are encouraging people to find their path. In Bali says many rivers, many paths all lead to the one, all lead to the divine, and whatever that divine looks like to you. And some believe it has to be one thing, but maybe they're all right.
Yeah. Right, thanks for that. I tend to agree. I think it was Chris who said a moment ago that there is no right or wrong. Completely agree. And I think there, not just with yoga, with meditation and a lot of, I'm going to say spiritual, but I'm doing air quotes for the podcast listeners. Spiritual practices. There are some people who attach dogma to it and say, you can't do it that way. You've got to do it this way, and you shouldn't do this and you should do that. I had a debate with someone not too long ago about psychedelics, and this was a student of a Qigong teacher, and she was vociferously against the use of psychedelics. She said that's not a path to enlightenment. The only way you can gain a path to enlightenment is through practice. We respectfully disagree, and I think the same can be said with any and all of these practices. And so with that in mind, there are lots of practices we can get involved in. I had a question for Chris, actually, because obviously we come to do yoga with you every Monday, Bhakti Yoga. Chris plays and sings with you, but do you do asanas? Do you have a practice?
No. No, I go in and out of yoga asana practice. I don't think I have the same passion for yoga that Audrey does, but I do have a very strong passion for the search of God, the existence of God, my relationship to God, my connection to God, the universe. And I see yoga as being one of the lenses that many people have for practicing, for meditating, for praying, for efforting, whatever that looks like. And for some people that could be Christianity, some people that could be yoga, it could be Buddhism, it could be all sorts of things. And I just somehow find myself circulating in this community more and more.
And of course, you're, I think it's safe to say, a dedicated surfer.
I am a dedicated surfer, yeah.
Well, I was wondering, because I've met a fair few dedicated surfers in this part of the world. And for those listening, as you know, or you don't know, we're in Uluwatu, the Bukit Peninsula of Bali, and it is absolutely rammed to the rafters with surfers, because there are some of the world's best waves here, right?
Yeah.
But what is this connection that surfers have with a spiritual path?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder if being outside of the direct surfing community, it looks like there's this connection with the surfing community to the spiritual path. But being in the surfing community, so many surfers are the worst behaved human beings I've ever met in my entire life.
Would you care to elaborate, sir?
Including myself at times. So one of the conflicts that comes up with surfing, especially here in Uluwatu, let's say you paddle out at Uluwatu and there's 50 to 75 people out there. On average, let's say every 5 minutes, a set of 5 waves comes in every time, right? So what is that? Every hour, maybe there's 60 waves. You've got all these people that want to surf all the time. It's almost like being in traffic. Everybody's trying to get somewhere, but there's too many cars on the road, and it's taking too long, and everybody's getting frustrated. And then, of course, there are rules around surfing, who gets to go, who has the right of way, et cetera, and those rules can kind of become gray. People start breaking those rules, and fights break out. Like all the time.
Really?
Whether they're verbal or physical, absolute physical fighting in the water happens. Yeah. I witness it often.
Well, yeah, you're right, because we're not surfers, although we do keep talking about learning, don't we?
We've been talking about learning for 2 years.
I dare say, if anybody's like that with me in the waves, that's going to bring out some old versions of Martin.
I had this romantic ideal that you're sort of out there, one with the waves, meditating on your surfboard.
Vibes.
I think that exists as well. For me, my favorite thing to do is paddle out around 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. in the morning because nobody else is out there. So I get to be out there at sunrise. There's no wind. The ocean is calm. It's just me and the ocean, me and the waves, and so I can focus on that. There's wildlife. We have dugongs all the time. I've been able to pet some of the dugongs.
What on earth is a dugong?
Yeah, it's what do they call it? A sea elephant.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, or a manatee in some areas, and we have a lot of those out here.
I didn't know we had that.
Yeah, and plenty of times they've come up. You see them swimming all the time. And plenty of times they've just kind of circled me, and I kind of slowly climb off my board and see if it's okay and start touching them as they kind of pass by. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So for those moments, I am having a beautiful moment in the present, and I celebrate those times, and I really try to avoid crowds. But I bring up the conflict thing, I guess, just to say that, yeah, we don't want to romanticize anything. We're all human beings, no matter where we land up. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking to Jake McKenzie. Well, I just had a conversation with him recently, which is just gone live. But we had a conversation with him back in season 1, didn't we? Episode 10, for those listeners who don't know what I'm talking about. And we actually recorded it on the Binging Cliffs. So we had the sound of the waves coming in through the whole podcast. It was a really beautiful session because we were on a nice terrace on this kind of rickety boho chic cabin thing, weren't we? But he was talking about, for him, that experience of oneness when he's in the waves, and it's kind of like, for him, that's how he feels complete, to be on the water. But there's a connection, of course, isn't there, with water, with the frequency of water and the water within our bodies? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I'm always drawn to the water, and if I'm out of the water for, I don't know,
a week,
somewhere between 3 and 5 days, life starts going south. Yeah, real fast.
Chris starts going south.
Yeah,
back to the bucket.
Yeah, I really can't explain exactly why it is, but really, like my energy, my optimism, everything kind of starts going downhill. I really think there's something about water and grounding and that time spent, being connected to nature.
So we're not going to see you living in the center of the island any day soon?
No.
Not like when we moved here. We moved to
lived
Ubud.
in Ubud for a couple years.
Which is in the heart of the island, for those listeners who don't know Bali.
Yeah. I drove to the East Coast almost every morning. So it's about a 45-minute drive on a motorbike.
Yeah, so
that's dedication.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he's out of water for a while, then it's like, babe, are you okay?
You surf as well, don't you, Audrey?
I have.
Do you have the same connection?
When the conditions are really sweet, when the waves are like these baby waves, here with the water, beautiful, crystal clear and warm. Here it can be amazing. Baby Padang is a little place here. It's Baby Padang, not Padang. tiny little wave. And then we went to Lombok a few months ago, right? And had epic waves. So when I get up, when I'm on them, I have a blast. But it's a lot of work and a lot of dedication to actually be out there and to actually feel really comfortable in the water in any scenario. And I haven't given up hope yet on it, but it goes through waves. So we'll see with this season if I get back out there.
I've surfed on and off for a while, but just on and off. That's the point. So I didn't dedicate enough time to it. And also the guys who were teaching me just wanted me to get on with it fairly quickly. So before I knew it, I was at Bingham.
Get out there and surf.
I was at Bingham Beach, getting smashed to bits by waves that frankly, you don't want to be on when you're still new to surfing. Yeah. Although interestingly, I got what's it you call it a washer machine when you get stuck underwater.
Yeah,
that happened.
Yeah.
And actually, if it weren't for my meditation and breath practice, I think I would have had a bit of a shit fit, to be honest. But I managed just to stay really mindful and just do the work, and then got out of it. But all that said, I haven't been surfing since.
But the thing is, the more tired you get, the harder that mindfulness is to find.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, that's when you go into panic mode, I think.
Yeah, and panic mode is by far the most dangerous thing in surfing. I've seen friends do it. I've had moments of panic myself where, you're just not thinking straight and you make the worst decisions. So a huge part of surfing, especially as things get more critical, whether they're really big waves, really shallow waves, is that you're able to stay calm while getting flipped underwater, 15 times and held down for 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah. Scary stuff.
Yeah, even you talking about it just makes my stomach feel funny.
Well, we I'm going way off piste because we're here to talk about Bhakti, but we met a lovely French and a Belgian today. A lovely couple who were called Jules and Lauren, or Laura. Anyway, sorry when you guys are probably listening and I've got your name wrong. But they met while they were out in Sumatra. Anyway, she had a big plaster on her forehead, and so she followed us on Instagram and we followed her back. And one of the latest photos is of these 3 nasty gashes right between her eyes, the third eye. And then the tail, she's got a fin, like a tail on a board like this. It's like a Y shape, a W shape. And one of them is absolutely dented to nothing, and it obviously smashed her right in the forehead. See a lot of surfers around here absolutely covered in cuts and bruises and sort of injured, don't you?
Yeah, well, that's why for me, I'm thinking I want sandy beaches and baby waves, and then I'm fine.
Yeah.
So we'll find out from you where they are, Audrey. Anyway.
Shall we return to Bhakti?
Yeah, you're going to use your mic when you say that.
Shall we return to Bhakti?
Wait. Do it again.
Shall we return to Bhakti? Audrey, I'd love it if you would tell us about Bhakti Yoga. What is Bhakti Yoga?
Yeah, it's a big question. It's simple and it's complex in all of it. Bhakti is a practice of devotion, and so it can be that simple. That everything that we do, we're practicing it with a sense of offering, with ritual. Like we set up this, I don't know if they'll be able to see it, but we even set up like altar pieces here for our space. That intentional ritual, devotion to God. One thing that becomes, I think it's unpopular right now, and we could go down such a big rabbit hole, and I go over this in my Bhakti Academy, and it blows people's minds because Bhakti seems so simple. Okay, love and devotion. Okay, and just practice love and devotion. And yes, there's these limbs, which are, different pieces and practices, like Patanjali, his yoga, where many modern postural yoga comes from. Patanjali's yoga, there's 8 limbs, and in Bhakti Yoga, there's these 9 limbs. And one of those limbs is Kirtan. The practice of Kirtan, singing devotional names, singing in devotion. And who are we singing to? Are we singing, for ourselves for performance? Are we singing to other people? Are we singing for, adulation back? Are we, who are we singing to? Are we singing, in Bhakti, it's singing to God. goddess, divine. And there are many different deities in the Hindu pantheon that also Bhakti Yoga practice and chant to and in a way ritualize. And it is in that unpopularity I'm talking about, is that right now we have a wave of a non-dual practice, and a non-dual practice is where everything's one, non-dual. But it's interesting because we don't understand really what it's like to be without other, right? We pair. We partner, and for the Bhakti yogi, if it's Krishna, if it's a Shakti deity like Durga or Kali, it's that beloved, which is who we sing to, Bhagavate, Bhagavan. That beloved divine is who the bhakta. So bhakti is the practice. Bhakta is the person practicing the bhakti, and the bhakta is desiring to even not look for enlightenment. And this becomes like a big unpopular thing, or even, I don't want to say unpopular, but I find that we think of even yoga as a one way, and it because bringing yoga to the West, there was this idea that they wanted to integrate it into religions in the West, whether it's Christianity or Judaism, whatever that is. Again, this is my limited understanding of the history, but really digging deep into the rabbit holes with many different teachers, and attempting to understand, why it is we think the way we think and the beliefs that we have with it. So, again, the Bhakta wants to connect with that divine love. So we find that divine partner. Who was it that said, you don't need to go to India to find a guru, just look at your partner. They will enlighten all of the shit you need to learn. And so I always remembered that, and I know people make fun of that, like, well, is Chris your guru or whatever? I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, in that sense that we're all each other's teachers when we look at what guru means. And for those that don't know what guru means, well, one, it's teacher, but two, it's the one who shines the lightness on the shadows. They're like enlighten our view and our path. So bhakti is a practice of love and devotion, and it is the easiest of all the yogas. In one way. And Kirtan, which is what also brought us all together, because it brings community together. And the one thing with Bhakti Yoga that's very unique is they talk about sadhu sangha. And sadhu sangha is that we want to bring our community together. We want to be in friendships. Whereas if you think about yoga and the meditator, Shiva, that alone in the Himalayas, sitting there meditating and trying to be, become one with the void or the bliss or the cosmos. Where in Bhakti Yoga, it's like, no, everything is the Sangha, the community, the family. So like anything, to describe something that is a practice, that is an embodiment, I find more and more challenging. But attempting to use as much words as we can
on a podcast
without giving too many fancy words and then breaking them down and making it not sound so cheesy or like pompous in a way of using too many Sanskrit words, because I love the Sanskrit words, and I think they do have power in their energy, and how they move through the body the more I study it, but we can also look at these things as very simple.
Well, I think it's like any language, isn't it? It's the words are spells.
Yes. And
it's the intention you put behind those words. Yeah. That's the point. It doesn't matter if we spoke like that horny cat in the background. Wow.
There's that cat again.
Wow. If I really meant it, then I believe anyway that the power is still there.
Yeah.
And for me, yoga was about community. And obviously Bhakti really brings it together. I remember when I finally got rid of the DVD and went to actual classes, I found the most incredible community.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's always been about that. Like when I've moved around the world, I've always wanted to seek out people to practice with and to study with.
And it's not one or the other. You can practice your bhakti along with your asanas, like when you come to bhakti flow, right? We're intentionally moving. Maybe it's that spark from our hearts. It's offering up the prayer intention to the ground. It's not just, is my butt tighter, or am I, is my handstand taller or longer? Those are great things too. And I enjoy both of those.
Tight butts.
Like the cherry on the top.
But I think one of the things, and Chris and I were talking about this, it's like in all of this yoga stuff, to not take ourselves too seriously, because that's the trap.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so many people do, don't they? People who practice yoga. And I am not sure if that's the same the world over. I've no doubt it is, but there are a fair amount of people like that in Bali. But we had this conversation on several episodes. This idea of people on their path to enlightenment, on their journey, and it's quite easy for people to find whatever it is, whatever that jam is that really works for them, but then they embody it as an identity. I'm considerably more spiritual than you. And respectfully, that means they're not quite there, in my opinion. I think I did it a little bit. Ram Dass did it. I talk about Ram Dass quite a lot. Was it Ram Dass who said that thing, by the way, about gurus? Sounds like a Ram Dass sort of thing.
I don't remember.
But Ram Dass talked about how he got carried away with being Ram Dass in the early days, and he realised actually it was just another stage of evolution for him. He got lost in his own spiritualized identity.
Chris described this really well. Do you want to describe it? Being in on it?
Yeah. A friend and I got into a deep discussion about this, and we have a very similar background. So my background partly comes from deep Christianity, Christian leadership, Christian worship leader.
What's a worship leader?
Playing guitar, standing in front of a group of people on a
Singing
mic
worship.
and singing and leading.
That was you?
Yeah.
Ah, I've seen that on the TV.
Yeah. And same with my friend. So we have this common background where over time we also became very disillusioned with Christianity.
That happens, right?
We stepped away from it and became independent thinkers. Then we've moved to Bali, gotten steeped in say this community, and
it didn't happen just like that, right? That happened a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. That's a real quick history.
Like 3 years ago. Come by our, my Lord, come by our.
So we started asking the question, like, wow, do you think some of the people in our community, the leaders in our community, are in on it? Like, are they in on it? Meaning, do they get it? Meaning, like, we're all just humans trying to figure it out. There's nobody's greater than anybody else. And then he brought this point up. He's like, oh my gosh, Chris, there's these cards. They made these cards in a bud. These what kind of cards are they?
Is it of the spiritual celebrities?
Yeah, kind of the spiritual celebrities of a bud. And
I've seen these cards.
Yeah, and we know a lot of these people, and we just had this moment of landing of like, oh my gosh, are these people, all of us equal, including us, and us talking about ourselves, are they in on it? Like, do they see these cards with a smile, like, hee, somebody made a card, okay, cool, that's funny. Or is this like some sense of arriving for them, like, I made the deck, kind of thing. And and so I've been having that conversation with a lot of people as I get to know people and feel a little safer, especially in leadership roles.
Yeah.
And some people understand the concept of are you in on it, and some people get very defensive.
Well, and that's human as well, isn't it? But that's ego, and we're talking about ego now, aren't we? That's the whole point and parcel of it. I feel left out that I'm not on these cards. How do we get on these cards? What do we have to do?
We're going to make cards for you, Martin. Yeah. Let's make some cards.
You'll have headphones and a microphone.
Amazing.
Because it's also just representation of the play and the leela and the fun. And and that's the whole thing. It's more like, can we look at it as the fun? And for me, I'm like, oh my God, because I think I was like, oh my God, I know her, I know him, I know her. I'm like, I love them. And at the same time, we also get it. Because for me, it's like, I know when I have not been in on it, or not let's say be affected by how other people put you in a position or project. And this is a big thing. Like, people don't know. They don't know you as an individual or as a, how you are in your relationship, and you have hard times, good times, all of it. Like, it's the beauty of life, right? It's all of it. It's not just all unicorns and rainbows, right? We say this a lot, and but yeah, that idea of how seriously do we take ourselves, and can we play even when we're holding like the most sacred ceremony, whether it's cacao or tea or some other plant medicine, and just really have reverence for that, but also be like, and we're all human and we're all equal and no one's above us. And I think that's just a huge thing to be drawn to.
Something you have to learn, isn't it? And it comes back to what you said earlier on about a guru. By the way, I see you as my guru.
And I see you as mine.
Oh,
there we go.
I love it.
But we're not joking, because I don't know who said it or where I picked this up, but we are all teachers and we are all learners.
Yeah.
And actually, it was John Butler who said to me the other week, or reminded me, that we were talking about the concept of impermanence, and knowledge is just another thing that is subject to impermanence, because everything in the universe is. So what we know today, we might change our opinion tomorrow, or we might know more the day after, and we might know more 10 years later. So I think, I don't know, I certainly went through this phase because this whole journey for me has been a very compact journey of, okay, I've spent 44 years, self-sabotaging, self-suffering, destroying this, that and the other, nearly killing myself, alcoholism, addiction, so on and so forth. So when I came here and started doing the work, it was intense work, 'cause I didn't do any other job. I just spent a year just doing the work, and it was quite monastic. And I think there was probably there were a moment or two where I probably got a bit cocky about it. Yeah, I'm spiritual. Yeah, I know some stuff. I know more than you do, or I know something you don't know. Thankfully, part of that process was learning to analyze to be aware of my thoughts and words. So very quickly I started having conversations with myself where I was berating myself for having these thoughts, but then I would berate myself for berating myself.
It gets deep. It gets really deep.
Like, dude, don't judge. You can't judge yourself. Yeah. Who are you to talk? Well, I'm just saying. Okay, that's a fair point. I'll take it under advisement from myself.
Yeah.
You're in a good space now, though. I always admire how you're so eager to keep learning and to admit when you don't know something yet. Like some people will be like, oh yeah, I already know that. You're very like, you're just absorbing things and openly, no, I haven't heard of that before, or I want to know more. And it's refreshing to see that.
It's part of this. It's part of the point of this podcast is to, because I think the earlier part of the podcast was, okay, this is breathwork. I've done some of that, so we can talk about it. This is, actually, we didn't do anything on breathwork, but you know what I'm saying. This is ayahuasca. I've done a lot of that, so I can talk about that. But I think now we're into the realms of having conversations where our listeners are learning as much as I am about this stuff, and that's, I like that, and I've got no problem whatsoever in saying I know nothing. I know nothing. Even the things I know about, I know nothing about them. But if you'd have asked Martin version 1.0, he would have been like, "Shut up! I know everything. What are you talking about?"
It's amazing you can find, your spirituality or your connection to God anywhere. And one thing I think Chris is very humble in a lot of ways. I would naturally say he's my, he's that yogi inherently, without being a yogi, without, again, I'm putting words in your mouth. You talk about this better, but the idea of like even having a specific belief system around God, for him, is your nature. We would talk about meditation. I remember we got a fight in India about meditation.
The irony.
A fight in India in one of the taxis in, like, literally in the Himalayas. Like, what's meditation to you? And he said this, and I'm like, no, that's not for me. Like, that's not, like, I can't, like that. No. And we we like dug in and we're like, oh, we're mad at each other. And I'm like, it's so funny that we're fighting about meditation. like you're doing it wrong. No, you're doing it wrong. And like,
That is funny, though.
I just, the hilarity of it all. And it's like, what is the point of all this? Which is why you're doing this podcast, right? Like how, well, you can call it happiness, contentment, connected. How much do we love? And again, that's why in my 30 years of practice, like it's never an ending, but I don't want to die tomorrow. But the like resting in this comfort to me of bhakti is because it's so simple of love and how loving can I be? And so my original, before the tangent I just went on about us arguing about meditation, was about Chris's connection to spirituality that I always admired, because the conversations we would have would be very organic about his surfing and when he would talk about connecting to the waves. And so he's also, what I notice about him, he's humble and he talks about the reality of things that a lot of people don't want to talk about because they want to talk about the fluffy part, and that feels really good. But then there's this other part too. And so I always admire that about him, like being able to share all the parts of things without, so we're not afraid of looking at our shadows and our deep shit. I can say shit on here, right?
You can.
But our deep stuff. And so I think you even sharing about your spirituality with your surfing, that's always been like something that you've been so drawn to naturally. And I know it's intense out there too, but
Yeah.
So you've had an interesting evolution, though, in spiritual terms, Chris. I was an altar boy. I was a Catholic, and funnily enough, I've met more lapsed Catholics than I have Catholics, I think, these days. But I'm not dissing the Catholic Church, by the way. Obviously, there depends where you are, which country you are. There are still piles and piles of very devoted Catholics, but I wondered if you had a similar journey to me. So I was the head altar boy, and I was the lead soprano in the choir when we sang the Christmas carols. Once in Royal David City, I couldn't possibly make that falsetto noise anymore because obviously things happen to boys' voices, don't they?
Thank God, yes.
And there's like, what's in Royal David? And it was David City, fired from the choir. But I fell out with organised religion, because I felt as though I'd had it sort of rammed down my throat because of all the dogma, and because certainly the Catholicism, the olden days, and because I'm old enough to have had an Irish priest shouting about the Old Testament, Don't do this and you will do that, and if you do it, you'll go to hell, and if you don't do that, you'll go to hell. All roads lead to hell. I wondered if you'd had a similar relationship with Christianity, which was what put you off it, but then, what was your journey from that to then
similar for me. I was raised Catholic, and with my family. I remember going to Catholic church and I could wrap it all up into this: God is pissed. God is pissed off, and you better not do anything to piss him off anymore, or you're going to hell.
Wrath. That's a word I heard a lot.
And so around middle school, I found a friend took me to a non-denominational Christian church. They had a skate park in the back. Some of the leaders were ex-pro surfers.
Very cool.
So it was kind of cool. And it had a very different energy about it. Still very much Bible-based, but much more open, accepting, regular talk, and I was really drawn to it at the time. I think in my youth, I was a pretty angry kid, and I needed a place that I could trust, so partly what you get with the Bible is you do get a book of rules to live by, and everybody's got to live by them, so it's a bit safe, and I really adopted that at the time. In fact, when I was in high school, I became a middle school group leader, like teaching out of the Bible. When I went to college, I became a high school group leader, and then eventually one of the music leaders at the church. And it was a pretty big church. But over time, I think just through thought and prayer and the search for God and the search for the truth, one of my prayers that just comes to me every few months is, no matter what the risk is, I want to know. And I feel like through that process, a lot of things about my relationship with the Christian church started to break down, where I realized I was just there because I was afraid. I was there because I wanted to follow a group and not be accountable for my own choices. I was there because I wanted to be right, and I wanted to criticize the rest of the world who were being wrong. And all those ideas started breaking down for me, and eventually I just made a decision, and it was hard at the time because I was married. First marriage, was kind of through the church, and my entire community of friends and a lot of my family and everything were there. And I just realized that I still believed in God. I still believed in spirit, but that this wasn't it for me anymore. And so I stepped out. It was really tough. It was both difficult and empowering because now I was just on my own. My search for God was fully mine. It was fully free. It was experiential based on, my interactions with the world and what came back to me. And I found that to be much more powerful than accepting somebody else's belief systems or a book, And even now, even in the yoga world, in any world where there's maybe a pre-existing belief system, I'm hesitant or really thoughtful before I adopt anybody's beliefs. Even at the end of yoga class, where somebody may say, "Okay, now sit upright and put your hands together in prayer." Like, I generally will not put my hands together in prayer. That's mine. That's mine to decide, unless I was already about to do it anyway. That's for me to decide. That's for my expression to God. It's personal. It's not just for somebody else to kind of take me by the hand and tell me what to do because I've done it before. So that's a powerful thing for me.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's a good share. It's a funny thing, religious interpretation of God and goodness and all this dogma that comes with it. I think it's the Bible that says that Jesus said, wherever one person or more gather in my name, I will be there. Yeah. Obviously he's talking about God. Yet, a few thousand years down the line, we're being told if you don't go to church by certain faiths, and I'm not saying everybody's got that vibe, but if you don't go to your place of worship once a week at a certain time and do all of these things, and you are risking the future health of your soul. And I'm fairly outspoken on this podcast, so I can't possibly say that I respect everyone's truth. That's the fundamental point. So if that is your belief, then I love you for it, and good luck with all of that. And I don't mean to sound sarcastic, even though I know that did. But for me, it's at odds. It's at odds with the very concept. I've always thought there's no coincidence that God and good, two words with just one O missing, right? And so I even though I fell out with Christianity and the concept of God, actually, for a while I was atheist, I still fundamentally believe that if you are good, and I don't mean like there's good or bad or wrong or right, you just try to live your life in the right way, then you're hopefully doing the right thing. But what is the right thing and what's the wrong thing, Julia?
Just jump that big question on me. But as I said, there's no wrong, there's no right.
Oh, teach us, Jules. Tell us.
Teach me.
Come on, you're my guru. Remember we had this conversation?
I want to say I loved what you said a minute ago, because I think it's really important for us to question. It's so easy for us to be told something by someone we deem to be a guru or our teacher, and we just lap it up without any question. And I think to take a pause and to either do your own research or to really sit with it and look into it, it's important.
Yeah, and my concern is not that I might be wrong or that I might be led astray, but it's that I might miss something. If I adopt a belief system, I might miss something because I think something is bad or good, or I think I need to be spending my time doing X, Y, Z and not the other. Yeah. I really feel that there is something on the path for me in this life, and that I'm responsible for it. Mm-hmm. And so it's for me to be on the lookout of, all that I can experience along the way, and not put blinders on. And I definitely spent a significant part of my life with those blinders on.
I'm vibing with what you're saying there. I've gone from being Catholic to atheist to now picking wisdom and truths from everything. Have you heard of omnism?
I think I have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Omnism essentially believes that no one religion is the truth, but there is truth in all religions. And again, I don't want to put a label on myself. I don't want to identify even as an omnist, but if I had to put a pin on it, I'd say that was the space I was in. Because on the one hand, there's some wonderful teachings in Christianity, some incredible parables that teach us these metaphors that teach us some cool stuff about life. But then I love reading about Buddhism and learning about what the Buddha had to say. I'm learning more about Hinduism, really jamming with that. Even some parts of Judaism. I'm reading a book on Hermetic principles right now, aren't I? Which is, well, that's another podcast. The point is, actually because I was a very dual person. I was either wrong or right. And usually I was always right. And now actually realizing that no one is right or wrong, and there are multiple truths to everything. I think that's perhaps, certainly for me, that works. Right, we're going to hear you guys do a song, aren't we? And then we'll come back.
Om Namo
Wow, that was pretty epic. Thanks,
Wow.
guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, really enjoyed
Amazing.
Thank you.
Now then, as you know, we have a segment on the How to Die Happy podcast, otherwise known as Be My Guest. And on Be My Guest, we invite our audience members to record some questions. And we have two such things for you presently. So I'm just going to go ahead and play them for you.
Do we get to know who asked these questions?
Yeah. Who are the questions from?
A lovely lady called Daniela.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually lives in Bali,
Uh-huh.
but she's originally from Germany.
Yeah.
Get in.
Be my guest. Let's talk, my friend. Let's talk, my friend. This is not the end.
The wonderful smooth tones of Mr. Dwayne Forrest.
Wow. I was going to ask if that was you, but no.
You're not the first person to ask that, and so thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's somebody infinitely more musically talented than I. Is a chap we met in Turkey.
Dear friend.
He's a lovely, lovely, lovely man. He's got big dreads and one of the most enchanting smiles you can possibly be lucky enough to witness. And
You can almost hear it in his voice.
yeah, well, he did the How to Die Happy theme tune as well, and he's actually going to record some more songs for us. So, you know, more reasons for you to keep listening. Question 1.
My question to you is, what means devotion to you, and how do you place it in a daily life routine? And is there any prioritizing in case of relationship, yourself, work, and all these parts of life?
Thank you, Daniela. What a great question. What was that? You know that noise that just happened there?
Mm-hmm.
What was that? Was that somebody's pump or something?
I don't know.
In the recording or in...
Was that in the recording?
Sounded like it was in the recording.
Yeah, it was in the
Pool or
recording.
something.
Bugger. Didn't pick up on that. Anyway, thanks, Daniela. What you got for Daniela?
Okay, hopefully I remember it. Did you write that down? What's devotion?
What does
To me.
devotion mean to you, and how do you prioritize it?
And in relationships, something about
Like
relationships.
within like relationships, work, sort of just generally in your day, I'd imagine.
I could play it again.
No, that's okay. I'm just taking a pause. I'm taking that Eckhart pause. But we'd be here forever if I took that long of a pause. Thank you, Daniela, for that question. Devotion to me really strikes a place deep in my heart. It becomes a feeling, and it can start with a thought. But most of the time, it can be come from an experience of awe in my daily life. It's a practice, so the practice of sitting in love and gratitude for all that I have in my life. How I prioritize devotion. One of the things is, to lead with value and love, especially in work. And for me, that's why this this practice of yoga and Bhakti Yoga, it's, I'm just drawn to it. And I have been drawn to it. I love seeing other people loving themselves. I love seeing other people loving themselves and being inspired to love themselves and to inquire about what it means to love themselves, because these are the questions that I've asked myself. Like, I love God. I loved God since I was very little. Like, I would have prayers and rituals since I was very little. Memorize the books of the Bible. Christian was the path. Catholicism and Christianity was my path as well, what I was introduced to by my family and school. And then when I found out when I was in my very early 20s, after I was practicing yoga for a while, that I heard a Swami say in the temple, I heard him say, when Christian children are asked where God is, they all pointed upwards to the sky, and when Hindu children were asked where God was, they all pointed at their heart. And I blew into a million pieces just listening to that.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, you make an interesting point. We do, as Christian types, do see God up in the sky, don't we? And of course, they also say in the Bible, God's everywhere. Question number 2.
Hey, my question to you is, to both of you, how does it affect your bond to work together, to have a mission together, or a vision, a shared vision that you follow and that you work on? And on which level does this affect your relationship and your bond? Is it more playing on the bigger picture, or is it also sometimes hard to keep the romantic part if there's also a strong maybe business part together?
What a great question with levels of complexity. So your mission, well, do you have a mission together? And what do you think she's referring to? Do you think she's referring to their work together in Bhakti and
I think so.
Kirtan?
Because you come together regularly to work, don't you? You support each other in what you're doing. So that's the mission together.
So how does that vibe? What's the dynamic?
Do you want to start with that?
Sure.
Is it all sweetness and roses?
It's so sweet.
Oh my God. Yeah. We could go down that road. That'd be fun. But no, the reality is,
No, the reality is,
Audrey and I are such opposites in life, and I think what comes with that, in my opinion, is utmost attraction. Both visually, experientially, emotionally, and then total repelling
Repulsion.
repulsion. I think. Thank you. At the same time, at times, like you never know what's going to bubble up at any given time. I'm very much what I think is a realist and objectivist, and I do like to unbury the rotten poop in the yard.
What an incredible metaphor for the downsides to relationships.
Something smells wrong. Let's dig into it. Whereas Audrey, in my opinion, is very much positive, focused. She's a big risk taker. She knows what she wants to do, what she wants to share. She wants to share her heart. Where's a question? What does that even mean? What does that even mean to share your heart? And I think she's very, very, very successful on that path. So to answer the question, we're a very lively couple. We're full of energy. We're both all into the joy of it, and we're all into the heavy philosophical debates. we'll even indulge in the healthy anger at the time that comes up over it. We'll indulge in expressing our attachment to our own beliefs, like arguing over meditation, and calling it out and laughing at the same time. I mean, sometimes just falling over laughing. But I think we're a full on energetic couple in all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. We engage, and Chris and I have been together for 2 decades, almost 2 decades. We met when we were 30, turning 31, something like that, and we're almost 50.
Which, incidentally, is just ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
They don't look anything like they're nearly 50, do
Not
they?
at all.
Man alive. What moisturiser are you using?
Yeah, we need the secrets.
Yeah, I need that in my life.
I think it's all the love.
And we've never shied away from, well, never is such a strong word, but we attempt not to shy away from things. And I think the crazy situation we're in the past 2 years really brought out a lot of intensity for everybody. And I would say it was the best and the most intense year. Not, I don't want to say worst, but I think that it was very hard for many people and some of the toughest times. But I think us evaluating what we're doing on our path, I am very clear, and because I'm very clear and I know what I want and what I want to do and share, and I see things. I think I have a constant spidey sense and intuition that just like I see things. I see things visually. It's something that like I feel like I can see some things before it happens even, and that isn't easy for anyone sometimes. And so I think we've had some really hard times too with just completely different personalities as well. But that's what also brings us together, because if he was me, and if I was him, his personality, we wouldn't be able to deal with each other. So when we're really good, I think that we come together. And one of the places we come together so well is when we're sitting down with our instruments and singing. It's like we could have a total tiff and like fight about something, and then we'd sit down at Kirtan, especially when we were playing so much together, before these past couple years, for public too, we just get together and it's like everything after singing mantras, like we don't even remember, we're just like a puddle together. We're just like, ah, and it really does shift our energy. So it's like these practices happen almost, the practices are, and then whatever state we're in, we find our way back. But yeah, these past couple of years, we've questioned a couple times, like, should we be working together? Almost like, we're not working together ever, and we're not offering things together. And yeah, that's too tough on a couple to, we're locked in, cages, not quite here, but we were locked in the past couple of years. So, but yeah, to her question, it's not all roses for, no matter what you see. I can't speak to other people's relationships that people witness, that share yoga together or share a path together. But it's definitely Chris. Chris likes to be invited in, but not forced in. And when I invite him in, he's most of the time very receptive, 99.9% of the time. But if he's a class, well, I was going to say go to astrology, say classic Leo, but if I tell him something, and likewise, like, what do you say if I tell you something, you'll do the exact opposite. So we have very strong personalities, the both of us.
Yeah. Thanks for that. That was 2 really great shares. I mean, I can't speak for anybody else, but I'll speak for us in as much as we're total opposites, are we? Yeah. Like,
you need polarity.
Yeah, but then for so much of my life, I thought you didn't need that. Like, you needed someone who shared all the same interests, and from my perspective, obviously that didn't work out. But we have this incredible bond. which is the same. So on the one hand, we spend a massive amount of time together, and of course, as with everyone else in the world, we were locked down. Although I think we were lucky because when we met, we moved in together really quickly, didn't we?
Yeah,
and
within like a week.
yeah, and we lived at a place on the beach up north, north of Sanur. So it was really quiet, but the waves were just constantly, in and out, right next to the house. It was a very chill place. It was quite big, and I was writing, and you were doing your thing. So actually, we were already sort of locked down, and then the lockdown didn't actually affect us. But I think we have a very similar relationship in as much as we were intensely together a lot. And of course, now we're doing the podcast together as well. Mm. But then there are times when, she'll just say, I'm going to Ubud for a week, or I'll just, I'll probably plow more time into work. So I'm just in the spare bedroom for a few nights, But it works.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? The point is, nobody's relationship's sweetness and roses, and actually, if anybody's got that impression, I don't know how. Perhaps it's because of this day and age with these digital devices, and we see people living in their best life. And I'm doing air quotes for those of you that are listening. That's an expression I found particularly irksome, because there is no such thing as having 100% happy all the time relationship, is there? Yeah. But I think the point is that if you can recognize one another's humanity, and you can have an argument about meditation, but then 5 minutes later you're apologizing to each other and you're laughing about it. Well, that's the point, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I can be an absolute asshole to you, but then she doesn't need to get an apology from me. It's offered, and it's offered very quickly. Usually, because I'm already helicoptering over myself going, I can't believe you're saying that. Shut up, I'm having an argument. Yeah, but you really don't want to talk like that. That's not you, is it? Seriously, I can't have this conversation with you right now. I'm trying to be a dick.
But also, I know you well enough to know what's behind it normally, so it doesn't really bother me, does it? Because I know what's going on.
But I think, the key is communication.
Absolutely.
And I think maybe, I don't know if you were getting at this, but I'm going to say it anyway, but often for me it's letting him find his way to that answer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I won't listen to her. I'm going to do it my way anyway.
Because it's that kind of that intuition and that I've seen this, I felt this, I know that, but just letting that be. Yeah. And then you find your way to that same space, and then we're there together. Yeah, and thankfully I find it a lot quicker than I used to do. It used to take me years. Now it might take me a day or so. But that's the masculine and feminine, isn't it, at work? That's like perfectly natural.
It's an interesting thing to be in relationship for a long period of time. And Esther Perel talks a lot about this, about creating a life story. When you're creating a life story with someone, how do you... what are the ways to stay both in mystery and in knowing each other? We know each other so well, but we also want mystery. And so this dance and this balance between, being able to look at Chris in a way that maybe when he's sharing, like he shared on, where did you share your story? On...
The Cosmic Whale.
Drifter, the Cosmic Whale, yeah. When he shared his story and being able to witness his journey and that massive, impactful, spiritual experience he had in front of all these people, knowing for him that was a big stretch and reach, and just being like falling in love again with that person up there, that person, to see him in someone else's eyes versus the guy I wake up with every morning, and I love, and sweetly we drink our coffee or tea together, and give kisses, and how was your night sleeping, and then you go on with your day, and but like really looking at him in a light that I did 20 years ago. And so that is a practice too. Like, it's easy to get into a routine and stay, and that's also beautiful and safe and sacred and wonderful. But having that and seeing each other in those lights is a huge aspect of remembering that love that you share with each other, and that not just knowing what he's going to say right away. And be like, oh God, he's going to say this when I say this. And then I'm going to say this. And I have the whole conversation worked out already. And I'm going to be like, boom, and that can be how our, our habits.
Yeah, become predictable. Yeah. We often pluck thoughts out of one another's head, which is really cool. And I legitimately believe that is telepathy.
So now we do, don't we? You just go...
Yeah, I say something and she just starts tittering and I'm like, oh, did I just pull that out of your head? Yes, you did. But interesting, something you said before I started wittering on. I think there's something beautiful for a couple when they can create together as well. And I know it's a cliche, but it's something like couples who play together stay together, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, like doing this together has been great. It started off mainly because when I was supporting you sort of more admin side, like the kind of assistant producer, and
booking guests.
And then I became the co-host, but you were spending so much time on the podcast that actually I never really would have seen him had we not decided to do it together. Yeah. Because a lot of it meant, packing up the car and going on trips. We went to Ubud and did a session and we've been to so many places and it's been great doing that as a team.
Yeah, and I think also we've evolved as a couple of hosts together, co-hosts together, and that can't help but positively affect your relationship, right?
And the polarity's there as well. So when there's technical issues, when it's the two of us, I definitely I calm the situation and can see the way to fix something.
Yeah.
But you're so passionate about the podcast that you just want it to work, don't you? So we've got this nice little balance with it.
Yeah, and there've been podcasts we've done before where Jules has said, okay, before we start recording, let's just do some kriyas or, some breath work.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm down with that. I'm down with the whole beautiful complementary aspect to relationships. There's devotion to one another in that regard, isn't it? I
Absolutely.
If we're to have a relationship that genuinely works, then we've got to accept the very dog poo as much as we do the roses.
We are definitely opposites in a lot of ways.
There's a song in that, isn't there? Dog poo and roses. Pretty good.
We'll come up with that.
Good country song.
Is that our band name?
And now, headlining the Hollywood Bowl, it's Dog Poo and Roses. Yeah!
You wouldn't forget that name, that's for sure.
I don't think I ever will. So, before you play us out, we need to talk about Kirtan, because we haven't. Now, I'm going to start this by explaining to anybody who's seen Eat, Pray, Love. There's a scene where James Franco and Julia Roberts are sort of loved up, and he interviews her. Blood and sand. What's the word I'm looking for?
Invites her.
No, I know what I was going to say. And James Franco introduces her to the concept of this guru and some sort of Indian spiritual vibes, and they end up going to Kirtan. Does anybody remember that? It's in that. And I remember watching that and going, what the hell is going on there? And I didn't get it. Genuinely didn't get it. And then fast forward to a few months ago, 2022, and I'm in your living room, and it's a big house, by the way, everyone. It's not like, we were all stuffed into this tiny room, and when we're doing Kirtan, and I got to say, absolutely blew me away. I was converted the moment I did it. So, what on earth is Kirtan?
Kirtan is a Sanskrit word for. It can be translated to storytelling, and it is a practice of call and response in singing. So Kirtan does not work without other people in the room singing. Otherwise, you're just performing, like a rock concert, which is not what I'm interested in. Maybe one day when we have dog poo and roses. But it's a facilitation of bringing people together and ecstatically sharing emotions of devotion.
Emotions of devotion.
Emotions of devotion, the ocean of devotion, and moving and singing through that. All of it, the happy, the sad, the good, the bad, all of it. And why it's great to hear, that word converted. It slightly scares me, or I cringe a little bit when I hear converted, because, converting anyone isn't, and I know you're facetious with it, absolutely. But the idea that if you're hooked, then I feel like that's it. Like your heart, the hope is that you are hooked to your own voice, and singing with other people, and we use this word a lot in yoga, right? Like-minded people, but literally finding your sadhu sangha. You found in a room where no one is on any intoxication, maybe cacao, which has
heart-opening properties.
Yeah, but it's a practice of chanting the names or mantras, names of gods, but it doesn't have to be just that, but it's chanting to the divine essence and really uncovering that place in our hearts. Like, who are we singing to? And that's what'll tear me up sometimes, because the teachers that have said, like, when you see somebody really singing, it has nothing, it's like singing to God. It has nothing to do with how they sound, how they're playing, but with the absolute pure absorption into their own blissful devotion. And that's kirtan. So, whether it's 10 people gathering or 100 people gathering, that practice of connecting with each other, and I've had the experience, I know Chris has too, and I can let him speak for himself, that I love going to kirtan too, especially kirtan where I'm able to sing, where I'm able to release all the thoughts and the judgments I have about myself and everything going around me and the to-do lists, and to solely and completely, it's a moving, dancing, singing meditation.
It's an immersion, isn't it?
Yeah, it's completely immersive. It absorbs you, right? You get absorbed in your voice. You get absorbed in the sounds. You get out of your head.
Yeah.
And we're so many people are craving that. So that's the experience. And I love hearing. It's really challenging for me to hear a lot of times, like, well, you guys sounded good, or you did this. I'm like, sure, my ego sometimes, of course it enjoys that, but then that just makes me self-conscious, and I have to work on that. That's my own work. But the really exciting shares for me are when people say, wow, I have never felt my heart explode. I've never, like that. I have never cried and laughed and felt so many emotions all at once. I've never, like the experience that people share in kirtan, it's like, again, I'm just reminded that, okay, if this is possible to do this with people, then I have to keep doing it. And that's what keeps driving me to share it.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make there, because I don't see it as the you guys show. I think we produce it,
Absolutely.
don't we? That's the point. You lead it.
Absolutely.
And provide the beating drum and the harmonium, provide the music and the lead vocals, but then it's a community, it's unity consciousness actually. Absolutely. In vocal terms, and that's exactly how I feel about it. And I've had sessions with you guys doing this, and also when we did Bhakti Yoga a couple of weeks ago, where we all chanted Om together, and my heart just popped.
Oof, yeah.
It's beautiful. Really opened up my heart chakra. Just felt this incredible feeling of love and gratitude. And I just looked around at everyone, and it was kind of a thank you. Yeah. And I think that's, for me anyway, that's what happens.
There's a power in that unity, right? And we talk about the unified field of love, and we're all creating that together, and we can have these practices on our own. And you're a fabulous musician, by the way, Martin, and I look forward to playing with you. We do. but yeah, and the experience of the cat back there just won't stop. I think the cat wants to be in Kirtan.
We're talking, it's call and response with the cat.
Yeah.
Meow, meow, meow. There is a horny cat in the background in the event that you cannot hear it on the podcast. Apologies. Carry on.
Yeah. I
You got lost.
Kirtan, did we understand that? Like, any more questions about Kirtan?
No, I think you articulated really well. What's your perspective on it, Chris?
Yeah. My experience in Kirtan and the value of it is, I think there's something in the singing within a group of people and chanting words that, translate to, like, may all beings be happy and free. Really opens up this flow of energy from the center of my head down to the bottom of my toes. And I don't think my general way of operating throughout the day is like this open-hearted, emotional individual.
Really?
Yeah.
You surprised me.
Yeah, right? But something really sneaks past my defenses in Kirtan. Not that I'm actively defending anything, but I at some point there's a switch where I notice I'm just like a liquid being, at some given moment, and it feels incredible. And similar to the surfing, if I don't surf, say every so often, I feel the same way. If we don't do Kirtan or something similar, I feel like something's missing or something needs to be reset somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing experience, and it is something that is created with the entire community. We've had some scenarios where we've done a kirtan. Somebody's asked us to do a kirtan, but the group that has arrived doesn't really know what kirtan is. They're not comfortable singing yet, and so we're kind of up on stage, and like, let's say 30 faces just staring at us.
It's just cold.
They're just not quite
no
sure.
Response.
Yeah. And in those times, Audrey and I know exactly what to do, which is we commit to each other.
Pack up and leave.
I mean, sometimes it'd be nice.
there's a moment of, uh-oh, we haven't experienced this in a long time, but here it is.
I can smell dog poo.
And so we just look into each other's eyes and smile, and we really do have an active, almost like two-person kirtan, and maybe that catches a little bit of fire in the audience, but
we're beaming that love to them as well, and them just listening and receiving it, right?
Yeah.
But knowing that it's not that.
But when we have an active participating kirtan group, which we typically do in this house because people have come,
like 80 odd people.
People have come for that. It's amazing for us. It's amazing to receive everybody's voices and everybody's energy.
Well, it is for us too, and thank you for that gift, for facilitating it. I genuinely believe, well, it's on two levels, isn't it? One, it's the words, but two, it's the frequency. And we've talked about sound healing on this show. We're actually going to do a specific episode on frequency and the power of what it does to brainwave states. But ultimately, frequency unlocks our energy centers. And so interesting you talk about how you get out of your head during it. Of course, it's actually a scientific process if we think about it, and I'm sure if we had the right scientists on, they could, which is pretty cool because I talk about this all the time on this show. We are in this age of Aquarius now, the dawn of the age of Aquarius, where suddenly spirituality, I'm doing air quotes again, and science are starting to meet. And then the Institute of Noetic Sciences have been talking about this for years. So now there's science behind a lot of this stuff, behind the power of frequency. But I genuinely believe when we sing together like that, ego is literally disconnected, put in the back seat, gaffer tape is put over its mouth, and consciousness starts driving the car. And consciousness is driving down the street going, Namaste, Namaste. Or, some wonderful mantras. And it's a beautiful experience, and I honestly, I don't care who you are, where you are. I don't care if you don't even believe in God. Go to a kirtan session, and let us know.
Yeah.
Contact us and say, actually, it was shit, or wowzers, trousers, what happened there? I would imagine it'll be the latter.
But so you guys know this because I've come to karaoke sessions with you. I don't sing. Like, I never sing. But when it comes to Kirtan, and I mean, I do a lot of chanting anyway in my daily practice. And whenever I get the opportunity to chant with other people, I'm like all in. And at Kirtan, I just
You belt it out.
Just belt it out, because you lose that consciousness, that self-doubt. You know, I've never been confident with my voice, but as soon as I'm in here and I'm, you know, got the mantras, I'm just gone.
Yeah, and everyone's riffing it. That's the other thing I love about your Kirtan sessions. I make up my own harmonies.
Great. It's great. He's always harmonising.
I love it.
Yeah.
You might have noticed that because we were sitting at the front of the
We're going to get you on the mic.
I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to do it. And but what's wonderful is being able to do that. And then someone near me goes, kind of like his harmony. So then they pick up on, and then suddenly before you know it, you've got 4-5 part harmonies just organically being created around 80 people. I mean, imagine this. It's like a really cool choir.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah,
But it's
absolutely.
like in so many, even going back to when we talk about religions, like organised religions, people come together in community to sing.
To sing.
And that's what we want. We want community, and we want to lift people up. We want to lift each other up.
Yeah.
And you want to feel welcome no matter what path, what religion you're on. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you do come from a specific religion and you have your connection to God and Allah and Jesus and whatever that way is, and it's like you can still take part in, and you don't have to believe specifically in one name or the other. All are welcome in that way, and I think that's also the beauty of the practice.
It is. And I said it earlier on in the conversation that words are spells, and I genuinely believe one of the good things you do in your sessions is you explain what it is we're singing. So you'll give everyone the Sanskrit, but then you'll explain what it is they're singing. By that rationale, we could sing it in any language, and if we believe it, then it's a spell.
Yeah,
That's my perspective anyway.
it's beautiful.
Well, I say this at the end of most podcasts, but blood and sand, I could have this conversation for a lot longer. We'll just have to have you back on. Now,
Love to.
before you sing us out, do you want to because you've got an album out, so we want to make sure we get your album name, your social media handles and all of that, so people can go and find you.
Thank you. You can find our music at Audrey Sarquilla on Spotify and other streaming services. You can find out about what we teach and where we teach at audreysarquilla.com. And yeah, we host trainings here in Bali. We also host Bhakti trainings online, and specifically for those people who want to open up their voice. And especially if you feel like you've never sung before, or afraid to sing, or just want to speak your truth more, I teach that, as well as the harmonium. And the harmonium is what you're listening to when we chant and sing for you guys here on this podcast. And it's one of the easiest instruments to learn to and attune your voice to, and feel the above of devotion, and really get into the vibration, which is so much of that sound that the current is, that we're oming to. You know, it's that inner om. And Instagram, Audrey Sarquilla. I don't know if you want to give your Instagram, but so basically Audrey Sarquilla, and just he's kind of the behind everything, and
happy that way,
and support makes the websites and does all this stuff,
but he's not Audrey and Chris Sarquilla for a reason.
He doesn't want it. Yeah, no. This is
humility.
We're clear. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank
I've
you
really
so
enjoyed
much.
this conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Epic.
Thank you so much, both of you.
May all beings be happy.
Om.